I fell asleep to your API video. I was like, oh, time for bed. I need something to listen to. And I was like, shit, this is actually interesting. This is like actually relatable. Like, oh my god, our API sucks, I think. And you're making so much sense with the whole like your API is your product. And like if you have a shitty API, your product shit. I was like, it's gonna be noticeable. I was like, bro, yes, spit facts, bro, fucking fire, yes.
So, thanks for being here. Why didn't you start by introducing yourself to our wonderful audience? What do you do? What do you care for?
Hi, I'm Bob. I'm a team lead for the technical support for a SaaS company, focusing on an engagement platform for companies. So we're targeting HR basically and pushing surveys to employees so that they can show up like, oh, look at our employees, they're all happy, or they can show, oh, look at them, they're not happy, we should probably do something. I get to deal with all of the customer complaints, questions, bug reports, and etc. So okay.
Little known fact, actually, I used to run the support department for an agency,
Mm,
and well, I was the whole department for a bit, and it was everything from like how much do we spend on support, have to talk to developers to do it, make sure sites are maintained and everything. And what I found was it was too far from coding for my liking, but
mm.
at the same time, you get to speak to so many people and debug so many issues. It was
Yeah.
so helpful.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of fun because like every day is different,
Hmm.
and every issue is um, like could be super complex or it's like super simple.
From your experience, are you treated as children of a lesser god or equal partners? How does it work?
For the longest time,
Yeah.
at my current workplace at least, I was treated as a, oh yeah, like tech support, you don't know anything, like you say things, but it doesn't really matter. Like, oh, thank you for your feedback, and then they don't do anything. But for now, the latest years, I worked there for 5 years now, or 4.5, and so now the latest 2 years, I've been getting like more appreciation and like recognition for that I actually know things.
Hmm.
Uh, so, and when I became team lead as an official role, I made it a point to bribe my way into
Hmm.
the hearts of the POs. So I scheduled a business lunch with each of them and just sat down and was like, this is what I want to achieve. This is what I can bring to the table. How do you want to work going forward? And that really cemented my position as a stakeholder in development, but also as a voice of reason from the customer perspective. So I am included in a lot of development, and they do seek my opinion a lot now. But go back 2 years, 3 years, non-existent. It was like if you gave proper feedback, it was at the end when we were shown the end result, and we were like, "Oh yeah, did you think about this, 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 this? Our customers use it like this. Have you covered that?" And they're like, "Oh, no, we didn't actually think of that. That wasn't in the scope." You're like, "Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Release it and see what happens." And then an onslaught of tickets came into the support going, can we do this? Can we do this? And it was all the points that we pointed out.
When you actually have a dedicated support department, they get so much information, so much feedback, and they have to have such a good product knowledge that it's insane to me. A lot of companies have it completely disconnected from the production teams because,
Yep.
okay, you're not going to go there and write code or test the software or whatever, but when people don't involve them, even if in the sense that, hey, we're releasing a new version, just a heads up, this service
Mm.
will be unavailable, or hey, if someone reports something different, just so you know, not even as a feedback, right? Just in
No.
the you're part of the product ecosystem.
Yep. It's crazy because we've had like now our release flow is pretty good. We have a lot of communication internally. It's good. But when I started 5 years ago, they could drop something Friday at 4 o'clock, check out, don't check anything until Monday midday, and they're like, "Oh, why is there a bunch of bug requests? Like, what's going on? Like, why is there a priority one ticket here? Like, huh? This is something I don't understand." But that's just me being bad. But like everyone's split into teams, right? And they're responsible for different parts of the product, right? And I feel that this is pretty common. And they change something, and that affects everyone else as well. But they don't communicate that, so they just make a change. They're like, "Oh yeah, we've improved this," and then 2 days later, this thing that's really important for everyone just breaks, and nobody knows why. And we have to be like, "But they changed this, and that's the same modal. Like it's obviously connected." And they're like, "Oh yeah, oh, why didn't we think of that?" And it's like, because you don't communicate.
Hmm.
Because you're like, oh, I'm just in charge of this thing. So I'll only care about this thing working, but not this thing. And that bothers me a lot. I don't know. Because we talk about silos and like not communicating. And then this happens all the time. It's like just reinforcing the behavior.
I think we had 8 different product teams all creating different parts of the same SaaS product, and it ended up being that we need to capture actions on the screen that users do because we had testing software,
Mm.
and we had 8 different uh, products or processes or libraries that captured the screen and the inputs, and they were completely disconnected from each other. And at some point, we're in this big meeting, and our CTO is just like, "Why the fuck do we have so many? Can we just please decide on one and just use it?" And
Yeah.
you had the different teams, and they're like, "Well, our capture thing does this that these other don't do," and it's like, I don't care. Find like a common ground. It can get pretty hectic, and it's a shame because unless you actually want to have a release manager or you have some doing dev relations internally, that as a role just falls into like having a good PO or having like really
Mm.
good techs that actually know how to communicate with each other, which is rare.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have we have one tech lead who is phenomenal. He's been at the company forever, longer than me, and he knows every bit of the company and he knows everyone. He's on everyone's good side. So if you need things done, that's the guy you go to and go through. So I'm really good friends with him.
Nice.
I've made it a point to be really good friends with one dev or dev op in each team,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can, if I need to, just push my way into a sprint with some important thing or an improvement that is neglected in Jira in the backlog for years. And I'm like, just push it in and you just talk to the dev and he's like, yeah, yeah, we can sort that. That's 5 minutes. And you're like, yep,
Mm-hmm.
please do it. And then the PM's like, oh, we did this? And it's like, yep, we did that.
It's interesting because I was talking to something similar with Jason in my previous chat,
Mm,
and he was complaining how there's a change, and they keep telling him, "Oh, we need 3 weeks. We need to go into planning
mm,
poker and everything." And it's one of those things I don't understand because you should always have some sort of space to just do random tickets. Like you should have that extra capacity, but it seems like a lot of people don't plan for it, and I guess. That's maybe part of the SaaS nature that everyone is rushing to deploy something,
mm.
but yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot to do with if the POPM, if they work towards what the board members want and what the board roadmap looks like, or if they work towards what the customer wants. I think that's the difference. Because a PM or PO who works for the customer or for the end result, the usability of that, they are more inclined to actually include things just sporadically and leave space open for other things, while more square POPMs and like corporate focused PMs, they tend to leave nothing. It's so much more difficult for them. And looking at the Jira backlog for those teams, they usually have more shit, like more bugs, more maintenance, while the other PMs, POs, they have like sometimes I go into a triage and we have nothing to say because there's no bugs because it was picked up while we made the bug mid sprint. They just picked it up, brought it in, fixed it, moved on.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a really enlightening moment one time. I found myself into this chat with our head of product for Europe, the head of research, like really big names in the company. And I was talking about how I don't think we're caring enough for the customers and what the customer wants. I believe he was the head of product, and he tells me, "So Alex, who do you think we're working for?" And I was like, "Our customers." It's like, "No, we're working for our investors, and
Mm.
what we need to do is justify that what we make is enough money for them to keep investing, and we don't actually care about how much people are paying us, because what people are paying us is less what the investors are paying us.
Mm.
So that's why it's not happening. And it was just sat there. I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I literally
yeah,
have nothing to say. Fair.
yeah. We got out of that very recently, actually,
Mm-hmm.
because we're a startup company, had a really great start, just growth year after year, just kept increasing, doubling every year. But at a point, we reached the capacity of the Nordics, so like we couldn't grow anymore. We just took on investment, kept pulling in more investors with these, really high interest loans. Essentially, we were expanding so rapidly that we like tripled the work capacity, like the amount of people we
Mm-hmm.
employed, and then it just tumbled over, and we realized, oh shit, we're not. This business plan is no longer viable. We're not profitable yet. We can't stand on our own legs, and cash flow's running out. So we had to do mass layoffs. Every scale up, problem that you see, uh, and it's now that we can finally stand on our two legs,
Mm-hmm.
not be reliant on investors, that we can actually work for the customer and the end result. But when we had investors, they set the roadmap for development, and I find that so fucked.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you understand our market? You don't. And so they set these ridiculous goals, and everyone's just suffering, especially me and the support. Uh, and we have to, I don't know, somehow to translate the truth of
Mm-hmm.
the development into words that don't offend the customer, but also explain that we can't do anything. And it's so hard sometimes. Like most Nordic companies we speak to, they understand, but we're also branching outside and speaking to UK based companies or like German based
Mm-hmm.
companies. Very, very different. And we also have like a few like Canadian companies.
Fuck Canada.
Fuck Canada. Honestly, the rudest people I've ever fucking worked with. And they they misinterpret you on purpose. If they can get any kind of gain from misinterpreting you, they will. And they I'm getting triggered.
Yeah.
Canadians are the worst. But UK people are also very different from Nordics, so it's hard to work with UK based companies. Our then CEO wanted to open the door for UK market because he's like, yeah, that's where all good tech companies work, and yeah. So we got an office, and apparently if you don't have an office in central London,
Mm-hmm.
in there's like this little area apparently. If you don't have an office address in that area, you're a shit company.
Yeah,
You
that's true.
Nobody will talk to you. Yeah, and I find that completely fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
So we paid so much money to get a little office there, and our entire product shifted over to UK, and then it still didn't work out. We have maybe we have 1,200 customers, and 3% of them are UK based. Like it's so hard to get into that market space because it's so tightly protected. Like,
Yeah, it's their own ecosystem, like completely.
yeah,
Especially post Brexit, doing any sort of business in the UK is just like difficult.
yeah, very. And even before Brexit, it was like they didn't want outside companies to come in. It was like if you're not UK based and made in the UK, you don't belong here.
And then you see this really cringe thing that's happening, that you get a company that, I don't know, they're Prague based, and they open an office in the UK just to say they're UK based.
Yeah.
So they sell to the Western world, and it's like you just have like three salespeople there. It's
Yep.
not your office.
Yeah. Our company based in Gothenburg,
Mm-hmm.
and we have our office in Stockholm as well. But when we got the London office, that was the first office that when we listed, it said London and then main office Gothenburg. But we still showed the London office first because if you search for it, the London office shows up first. So, and I don't understand the whole like why is that a big deal? Why this little square of roads? What's the benefit of being there? In Sweden, there's a lot of like need for developers.
Mm-hmm.
In Gothenburg, for instance, the sphere of or the pool of developers is really small. And if you've worked with one developer, then you probably worked with like he knows all other developers because it's such a small pool of developers that are available. Most of them are in Stockholm, and even then, the pool is pretty small. Like, why is there no new developers? Because you talked a little bit about vibe coding. Because before, developers were so sought after,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone was pushing everyone to become developers, but there's no developers left. Where did they all
Yeah.
go?
I think there's still developers. It's just that every market is different, and I think from the ones I have experience in, it's mostly that for different reasons you create market shortages. So there was in the UK a few years ago that developers were the third most positions with shortages after doctors and truck drivers or something like
Mm.
that. Um, and in the Czech Republic, we have a lot of foreign investments, and a lot of the developers didn't have to move anymore to go somewhere else because you had a lot of American companies. They opened an office in Prague. We have the Brno, Silicon Valley, and you attract slightly different clientele. What's happening though is that ultimately it's still outsourcing. So they only want to pay for senior developers who actually can just work within a week. And that's something
Mm.
I've heard from a lot of managers and leadership staff. We want to hire someone, and within a week they need to release production code. And on top of that, you have the whole tech dogmatism, because 2015, let's say, which was at the very end of the whole thing, if you could write PHP for some reason, uh, people could hire
I
you for C sharp. You know, they would be like, "Oh, do you know object-oriented programming? Do you know this? Do you know that?" So, okay, come here. We're going to write a different technology. You have the experience. You have the knowledge. Whatever. Now, if you go to a company and say, "Look, I'm really interested in TypeScript, and I have 10 years of experience as a PHP dev and 2 years as a Java dev," they're going to be like, "Sorry, we need someone who has worked with the exact stack we have." So the PHP developer is out of a job, and then the company will not hire anyone.
don't even know what languages we use now.
So I'm curious because this kind of plays into it. How much training material do you have in your company, both for someone starting in tech support or as a developer or?
Oh wow. None. Basically. So in the tech support department, we basically have the internal documentation.
Mhm.
So the each dev is responsible for writing some documentation on how their feature or function works. But that's the dev talk, right? How they write it and like this is what this does, and it's very technical, which in the tech support department we don't always have the most technically advanced
Mhm.
for like first and second line. So a lot of tech support knowledge just comes from doing, like learn by doing. You sit in the product, click around. It's not a very difficult product to work with, but it can become very complex because we work a lot with anonymity, having to actually make an organization into an anonymous organization. That's hard to translate, and that's hard for them to grasp. So that is our biggest issue, and then also being able to, in a very nice way and in a way that the customer can understand, explain it to them. So we don't really have any documentation because everything's also very specific for each customer,
Mhm.
which I think is a big fucking problem. I think we are too lax. We let them do anything in the product. Like there's no checks and bounds like will this work? No, it won't. But you're allowed to do it. So we set them up to fail if we do not literally hold their hand the entire way.
One of the quotes I really internalized. I don't remember which game dev said it, but he said that game overs are a failure of the game designer.
Mm.
And because we had high failure rate in APIs at the company, in the style guide I had in bold letters, and that's part of like what good documentation could be. That you
Mm.
don't just tell them, "Oh, you need to do this to achieve this result." You also need to tell them, if you did not do this or if you do this, this is going to be a problem.
And that's I literally had a meeting yesterday with my team because they had been in a meeting with a customer. The customer has been active for 2 years, and they are displeased with the value they get, like the results they see. My colleagues, they sat in the meeting for an hour, and I mean the customer is happy after, but they've lost 2 years of potential value. They didn't get enough help during their startup, their initial onboarding, and they didn't follow directions. And after their meeting, I looked at the new structure that we built together, and there were still issues with it. But this time we had been very clear, you're allowed to do this, but if you do, you will this will cause issues. But then the customer understood it, and they were like, we're okay with it here. They understand why it happens, so they are okay with it happening.
What would you like to say to a developer from your point of view? Why should they care about you as tech support, and how can you make their lives better?
I can see things before it becomes an issue, right? So many times I've been able to just drop a small comment on a Jira that completely changes the way they work with it. So being able to just have the customer focus and just make a double check. Will this actually work? Is this what they want? Because sometimes you're too deep into your code or into the product that you don't see the value or the need. We're closest to the ones actually using it daily.
What can a developer do to make your job better?
Just make us feel seen at least once in a while. Take care of your legacy code. Take care of the old shit that you made. Like, yeah, it's cool that you're pushing new features, but the old stuff needs to be maintained.
Do you have a dream role?
Funnily enough, a PO PM role would be kind of fun. I do like that kind of process that they go through, the discovery and all of that, and working with developers. But yeah, so that would be where I want to go,
Mhm.
but I think it's still far off.
From my point of view, the attitude you have is pretty much what you need there. Because at the
Mm,
end of the day, you're going to sell to some person and you need to work with
yeah.
people. So that's much better than someone just taking a certification and just being an asshole.
Mm.
Like, I've heard a PM saying that the trick to being a good project manager is that every time you show up in a room, everyone hates you. And it's like, no, that just means you're an
No.
asshole.
Yeah. That's the worst.
Do you have any shoutouts, anything you would like to plug in?
No, not really. I want to stay pretty down low, anonymous. I'm Bob. I
Yeah,
play games. Play more Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering for the win. That's it.
perfect. Thanks again for being here and chatting with me. I really enjoyed it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
no
let's do it
problem.
again.
Thank you. Yeah, for sure.
Bye bye.
Bye.